I've said it before, but when it comes to American sports games being released or imported in the UK, baseball games were always my least anticipated. It's easy for Europeans to fall in love with the speed of the NBA games, the deep tactics of the NFL games, and the bone-crunching tackles of the NHL. Baseball, on the other hand, was always that bargain bin game you'd pick up when nothing new was out and you just wanted something new to play. Although saying that, I did actually always get the All-Star Baseball games on their launch days because, well, that's just me. But outside of that, the N64 was awash with baseball games which never seemed to shift any real numbers. As expected, Konami, who at the time were the kings of punting sports games on the console, released bottom of the ninth in early 1999. But that's not where this game started. Oh no. Originally landing on both the Sony PlayStation and the Sega Saturn in 1996, this Nintendo 64 port felt incredibly dated even on its release day. Without the MLB licensed teams but having the MLB licensed players, the game from the moment you turn it on feels a lot like International Superstar Soccer, with pretty much everyone should be telling you is the console's best soccer game. You have your usual exhibition, season, options menu and so on. And there's a fairly basic training mode which lets you practice your batting, pitching and fielding to get to grips with the game's slightly weird controls. The scenario mode is one of the most interesting, and like the scenario mode of ISS, it gives you 20 events in which you have to overcome the odds to pull off a result. It's a cool mode to play through, and like the ISS series, it feels incredibly rewarding when you can finally pull off the victory, especially in the high difficulty level challenges. Sadly though, that's pretty much what I'd consider to be the high point of this game, because as an overall package the game is severely lacking when it comes to batting its competition out of the park. Firstly, the visuals, even for a 1999 sports title, are way below what the console was already showing its abilities in. Put this up against, say, All-Star Baseball even without the expansion pack, and it's night and day which game is better looking. If you turn on the expansion pack in All-Star Baseball, the inferiority of bottom of the ninth stands out even more. Now, Konami were not always known for their graphical work in their XXL Sports series of games, but the character models are very limited here, which makes entire teams at times look like the same player, with only slightly different skin tones to differentiate between them. The lack of any real facial definition is masked by the overall blurry looks, and I think that Konami also made the decision to go with very quick camera cuts during the game to further mask the weakness of the graphics. An area where the game does show some promise is in its audio department. The sound effects are actually really crisp, and when you make contact with a hit, you do get really crisp sounding effects, and it really feels like you've connected with a lot of power, and there's lots of a huge whip cracking noise to go with it. The commentary is limited, and it has what I can only describe as a TV or radio style compression to it. It really shouldn't work, but I actually think it fits the game really well, and it adds a little enhancement to the overall presentation. Sadly though, the rest of the audio leaves much to be desired, with muted crowd noises, and the talk between the players could best be described as drunken rumblings and mumblings, because it sounds like half the players have been on a big night out the town before the game. As is the case with pretty much every sports game, you can put aside the visuals and the audio and the licenses and all of that window dressing if the gameplay is actually solid. Bottom of the ninth is such a hard game to get any kind of emotion for. Did I enjoy playing the game? No. But did I hate playing the game? That too would be a no. It's almost like a nothing experience, which is no doubt enhanced further by my complete lack of interest in the sport itself. I'm sure baseball fans may enjoy this game, but for anyone else I think it's a definite pass. The controls play a big part in this because batting is probably the more enjoyable skill, and yet the whole mechanic feels a bit of a mess. You can hit foul ball after foul ball and then strike out, and even with some practice you can occasionally get a nice clean hit, but it is very difficult. Exchange your bat for pitching, and the same too happens when the tables are turned, and you'll see the majority of your pitches either end up as fouls or getting smashed into the stands. The lack of balance can make some matches extremely unbalanced and also unrealistic at the same time. The worst part of the game, however, is fielding, which clearly had next to no work put into the AI. Your teammates will constantly drop the simplest of catches, make needless dives to catch balls which they could have easily stood on the ground for, and throw the ball wildly across the park and completely miss the bases they were going for. Simply put, as a simulation game, Bottom of the Ninth completely misses its mark, and it doesn't have all of the technical finesse or licenses that fans would expect. Or as an arcade style game, it doesn't have the quick pick up and play feel, which is caused by what I consider to be horrible controls. So the game sits somewhere in purgatory where it won't appeal to fans of simulation games or arcade baseball games, and therefore I think that's exactly where this game should remain. So for today's topic of conversation, I'd love to hear your ideas on why baseball games don't seem to travel across the world, as well as some of the games from other major American sports like MLB, NBA and so on. For me, I see it a lot like cricket, which is extremely popular in places like the Caribbean, Australia, India and Pakistan, and yet it doesn't have any following in North America. As always though, let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section down below, and until next time.